Okay, well, what we're going to call this is Property 4B. Property 4B, and the purpose for that is that we're finishing up the regulation aspect, and then we're going to turn our attention to the private issues with regard to regulation, so private regulation. So basically, what we're looking at now is eminent domain. Eminent domain. Okay, and what is eminent domain? Well, written in the Constitution and really in the spirit of the law since way back in the English common law, if the government can make a strong enough argument that requires any kind of property for a use, a certain use, then they're allowed to go to the owner of the property and say, you know, we're going to give you fair compensation for your property, but the issue that you come into is the problem that you get into. Here we go. I'm sorry. I'm being kind of pulled aside here. But the problem that you have is, in the old days, eminent domain meant like fire station, okay? It's been used effectively for a school, okay? What about like a post office, okay? You know, things like that, in other words. So they've got things that they need. They try to be careful and circumspect on when they would do this over the years. And if they see a compelling need and this is the place, let's say, for instance, if we locate this school on this guy's property, it's going to save us millions of dollars over, say, 20 years in bus transportation, okay? For example, some of these consolidations, they've got schools that are strewn all over the county, and they're saying, well, we're going to build a new school, we're going to close all those old schools because, number one, we can't heat them effectively, we can't cool them effectively, the windows are junk, the roofs leak, there's so much money in maintaining these old buildings, we're better off to move the school to a central location where people can get there, we can save on transportation, we can save on heating and air conditioning, a lot of other things, even lighting with these tube lights that they have here now. Some of these new modern lights are so more efficient than the old ones, and so that can make a big difference. So they can argue effectively, well, we need to put the school here, and they'll say, sure, okay, fine, no problem. Okay, well, the issue comes up, though, and there's been kind of a mixed bag on a couple things with eminent domain, and that is, what about an airport? Well, yeah, we kind of need an airport. That's a good point. That's a form of transportation in this complex society. But what about, like, here's your airport, but they're like, well, we need like a quiet zone around it so that we have to own this so that nobody can build any structures on it or, you know, grow any like big trees, something like that, because a plane could hit it, okay? So they have to have zones where they basically have nothing, but maybe around here they have lots of corn and stuff like that in here, okay? So no trees, no big buildings, no radio antennas, you know, like a radio antenna. Can't have that, you know. So basically what we're looking at is, the question is just how much ground does an airport need by way of eminent domain? And there's been a lot of people that have argued against it, okay? Well, the problem that you get into on it is, here again, it's the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. And what's going to happen, you know, in other words, on that. So once again, this is a utilitarian philosophy. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of a few, okay? And this guy that first came up with this, one of the big ones was a guy named Jeremy Bentham, okay? And here again, what we're going to say to you is that there's an assignment here, if you want to do it, is that look up utilitarianism, how does it apply to property regulation? So utilitarianism, Jeremy Bentham, how does that apply to modern property regulation? You can Google on that, you can go to LexisNexis, look for law reviews on this, give me a couple pages on that, and of course you got to follow the rules in terms of APA and formatting and all the stuff that you're starting to get used to. You're doing much better, by the way. So this is your opportunity to pick up 25 points, is work up a little paper on the needs of the many outweigh the needs of a few, and how does that work into these civil cases in property and things like I mentioned, like the search warrants, the nuisance abatement. Eminent domain is a perfect example, because do we really need this ground to build this airport and have this big quiet zone around it where you can't build anything or erect any big radio towers or anything like that? So that's an issue that we have to deal with. What about zoning? Couldn't zoning handle some of that? The guy could still have his land? Well, those are all issues that have to be dealt with in this, okay? Now, here is the big bugaboo on this, and that is kilo versus, now this is something that's all of us new, everybody's talking about it type thing. I know you're going to say, well, I'm not talking about it. Well, you need to be, okay? This is the Kelo versus New London, Connecticut case, okay? Look that up. Here again, if you want to throw that in the mix, it could be a good one to use because we go into this very same thing. Eminent domain case for what? Eminent domain case for what? For a multi-use shopping mall / condo, like townhouse type thing. So what they do, they have these out in Maryland where I went to get my doctor's degree, and what they do is they actually build these buildings in such a way that the whole first floor of all the buildings is your Subway, Panera's, Dunkin' Donut, across the street maybe there is Krispy Kreme donut, and Starbucks is across from Panera's, and so all these buildings are, the first floor is all commercial, okay? Then the upper floors, which are that you can get to them by elevator, are condos. People live in them, okay? And so then there's also areas where they can park their car in secure parking, and there's also other areas for public parking. So they can attract people that don't live right in that area. But there's a good solid base of business. Your franchise is probably going to make it because people just live up and come padding down in their pajamas, literally, and get their breakfast from you because they don't even have to go out of their building. And this is big in a lot of places. It's all over the East Coast. My son said they're even retrofitting a lot of the old downtown buildings in Seattle. They're doing that. They've got, of course, Starbucks on almost every street corner. If it's not Starbucks on one corner, it's Seattle's Best on the other. And there's a couple of other even local places that are even better. So what happened in the Kelo case? Well, okay, the Kelos were a quiet, nice, unassuming couple, elderly couple. And I want to, here again, sorry, but I'm going to do a drawing. I don't want to offend you, but okay. So they're in Connecticut, and here's the ocean, and it comes in like this, okay? And this is an outlet for a river that goes this way, okay? So the river's coming down this way, and so there's like a street. It's an old street down through here, and there's all these old homes. I shouldn't have done it like that. Because all of these old homes had like a beautiful view of this river that's going out onto the ocean. And one of the prime properties, these people don't have two nickels to rub together, but they have this beautiful home, okay? And they have this is the ocean, okay? And, you know, this is like the Pawtuxet River or something like that. I don't know what it is. But it's some kind of river, and it's going this way, okay? So this development company comes in, and so they start tearing down all these houses. They buy them from these people through eminent domain. The city buys the houses and then turns right around and tears them down and sells them to the developer for bare ground. And of course, the city's actually making a little money off of it. And what the city's argument was in this case is, well, they're going to put employees in here. Those employees are going to make money. We're going to collect taxes. It's going to be a higher, better use of the real estate, which is a basic rule of real estate marketing. And so basically what they're saying is we're going to make a lot of taxes through property taxes and income taxes on all these people that are going to work in here. So the court bought it. The court said okay. So the people appealed it. They appealed it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. You can look it up on oyez.com, oyez.com. And oyez.com is a great website, or it's not com, I'm sorry. It's oyez.org, oyez.org. And if you look it up on Oyez, basically it'll give you all that information. It can give you like an audio of the lawyer's argument, so you can hear the whole thing. You could even download it and listen to it on your way to work or school or whatever. Put it on your MP3 player. I'm sure you'd love to do that. Some people probably say, who's he kidding? Well, anyway, here's these couple little homes right here that are fighting. They're going to fight the whole thing, okay? And so everybody else is bought out, but no, by golly, we're not going to do it. Well, then what happens? Well, the court says, yes, we're going to make you do it because, once again, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So the problem that we have is, this is like, I don't know, 2005, I don't know what it is. Well, by the time they get done hashing this all out, it's now 2008, okay? 2008. What happened in 2008? Real estate fell like, a ton. They fell like jumping off a building, like boom, this is the economy right here in 2008, okay? And so basically it was running along, boom, 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 boom. Now slowly, starting to come back up in like 2012, okay? So what am I going to tell you about this whole scenario? Well, Mr. Kilo's property has never been used for anything. Nothing. They tore it down. They gave their money. They had to move somewhere else. They didn't want to move. They're old. They don't want to move. I understand that. Well, basically what ends up happening then is that they lose their house and the city gets nothing. The city projected they were going to earn all these taxes. They're not earning any tax. If anything, they're getting less taxes because it's bare ground. It's not worth nearly as much as the house on the ground. So that's a big deal. So here again, taxation is another big regulation. We've already talked about this some. Income taxes. I had a case one time where a guy actually had a lien for $95,000 on his house for unpaid income taxes, and the issue is the house was only worth about $20,000. Okay, so what would we do with that? Well, what we did, I went to court and got for the city and got the IRS to come up off of those liens so that we could redevelop that house and sell it to somebody. We finally did. It took years, but we finally fixed it up. We used jail labor on a community corrections type program and got them to fix this place up. Very nice, neat little place, very cute. Turned around and sold it. And of course, it was all profit to us because we took it over here again through abandonment laws. And the reason nobody wanted it was because the IRS had slapped that lien on it. So between working with the IRS and using the jail labor, we had to do a lot of different things. But we ended up making a nice little home for somebody. And there is a nice little family living there. I just happened to be up there one day, knocked on the door, hey, I see some people here. You guys buy this or what? Yeah, we bought it. It's nice. We love it. You know, I'm like, great. He said, well, who are you? I said, well, I used to be the city attorney, and I worked on this, you know, heart and soul for a long time. Finally got it worked out, and I'm glad to see that somebody's actually living here. So that's the kind of stuff you see. And so now we're into private encumbrances. So what we'll say to you about this is, what you don't want to do is, get involved with a crazy neighbor. I mean, it can be very bad. I've seen it run both ways. Let me go first on this is private issues, private regulation. Let me go first on one of my favorite stories, okay? And I'm just going to kind of go down. This is a house, okay? And so basically, what I'm going to do now is that I've said private, I'm going to clean this out. And I'm going to say, back in here, this guy's got a garage, okay? And this other guy's got a garage back in here, okay? But these two houses here again, they're set on 1/3 lots, okay? 1/3 lots. So this is his lot line, this is their lot line, this is both their lot line, okay? So these are the two houses, okay? They're just about the same. They got a sidewalk in front. They got a road out in front. And so basically, you guys with me? Okay? You know, and then when they say when you do like a map, you need to do you need to put north on the map. So we'll just say this is north, okay? I used to live across from these people. That's why I know so much about them. Well, they had a driveway, and they each had the right to use the driveway. Okay? So basically what would happen is whoever wanted to use it, they could bring their car in, pull it back, and go back into their driveway. Okay? So that's the way that was. Okay? So the problem that developed was that this house got sold, okay? And this old lady, she's lived here for like 50 years, okay? And it's been a nice little quiet neighborhood. Everything's always good, no problems. Basically, everybody was good neighbors to each other, all right? But what ends up happening is this guy moves in. When he bought this house, he moves in here, and he's got this pickup truck. And so he parks his pickup truck right here. So this lady can't get to her garage. She can't get in. She can't get around this guy. You know, it's too narrow in here. And it's half on her property. And so she didn't know what to do. So she calls the cops. They come out. He's like, look, it's a civil offense. We can't get involved. Okay? So she calls the nuisance abatement people. No, sorry, ma'am, it's a civil offense. We can't get involved, you know. And so this is an easement. It's called an easement, okay? So all she can do to this guy is sue him because he's violating her rights to access to this common road that they both agreed on, and so that they each have an easement on the other person, okay? So they have a more or less bilateral easement, okay? What that means is she's got an easement on him, and he's got an easement on her, okay? Well, what's the problem with that? Well, this guy is a jerk. I mean, he really is. He ends up getting divorced and everything. Nobody can get along with him. He's got jerk kids. And, you know, there's loud noise music coming out of there all the time and stuff. It's just been terrible. I lived over here. I lived right here, okay? So we had to put up with it, okay? So, and this poor lady kept running to me because she knew I was the city attorney. And I look, ma'am, I'd love to help you, but there's really not a whole lot that I can do. Fortunately for me, my garage was back here, and I had a road come in like this, and then I had my garage like back here, so you could just pull in off the alley and go in there, you know, which is much better. That's not really very well thought out, the way that they have that. So basically what ended up happening is she finally ended up having to hire a lawyer and sue this guy privately, because that's what you get into. It's a private dispute. And what you end up doing is you have to spend your money to get, to enforce your rights. And that's a big disadvantage of these different kinds of problems. And so you get a judgment against the guy, you get a restraining order against the guy. Well, then if the police come out there, you got a court order that says this guy cannot park in this area. So basically, it ended up she had to get the restraining order, then she had to get a protective order because the guy started complaining and over there knocking on her door and yelling, screaming at her, cussing her out and everything like that. And she's a little old lady. She's scared, so that wasn't good at all. So basically, what we end up doing is that we get into a lot of hassle all the time just because there are bad people in the world. And that's just kind of a common thing no matter where you go. We can pick up on any subject and I can talk about it. And that's going to be the common denominator is, the thing about utilitarianism that we've been talking about is everybody needs to get along with each other. That's so important and almost impossible, So that's an important thing. There's what we call mechanics liens and material men liens, and we'll talk about this. This is a house being built right here. Let's say this house is just framed, okay? There's no roof on the house, okay? Well, the agreement that the contract he signed was that, you get this done, I'll pay you within 2 weeks for getting this part done. And then you get the roof on and I'll pay you within 2 weeks to put the roof on. Well, the roof's not on, okay? This is all plywood in here. It's not basically waterproof in any way. It's just wood, there's no drywall, there's no siding, nothing on. But we need to get it what we call under roof, okay? So basically what ends up happening, no money, okay? So a month goes by, no money for the first part, for all this framing and stuff, okay? So what does the guy do, okay? Well, there's rules on just how long can you wait before you can file a mechanics lien. And it's going to vary from state to state. So here once again, in Indiana, how long does it take to file a mechanics lien, okay? That's a good question. Go ahead and look it up. Okay, so because it does change, is it 180 days? That's something that we would like to know. So in the discussion board, when you contact me and you're talking about what we're doing in this class, you might just say, well, we talked about in 4B video lecture that mechanics liens have certain deadlines, and so you need to look it up and say Indiana code such and such says deadline, is 180 days. Deadline, what is it? I don't know. Maybe it's 180. Is it 90? Is it 30? What is it? Tell me. And then we'll figure that out. Okay? So basically, we're at the point here of like no return, like we've said. Got to slip out of here and do some other stuff again. One of the things that you can get into is, the issue of liens. We talked about that some earlier. But these can be private liens. They're not like tax liens. Child support liens. Other kinds of divorce liens. Material men, the guy provides the plywood to build that house and you don't pay for it, then the material men can put a lien on. You can have a whole list of different kind of liens, okay? Last and final thing I want to touch on is mortgages and trust deeds. And we don't have trust deeds in Indiana. Basically, mortgages, what that is, you think you own your house, but basically, until you get a lot of equity in it, you only own a pipe dream, basically. It belongs to the bank. But the thing about the law in Indiana that is really good is even if you're buying your land on contract, you have an interest in the land called equity. Equity, it's an equitable interest in your real estate. So they can't sell the house out from under you without fulfilling that equitable interest that you have in the real estate. So what we boil down to is a final summary here, and I want to touch on this real quick. Basically, just about all property, real estate is regulated by the government or even by private, like the relationship I was saying about the neighbors. You can have zoning kinds of issues that are regulations. You can have eminent domain issues. You can have environmental laws, remember, on the wetlands. So there's a lot of different ways that property can be, subject to some kind of government regulation. And then also there are private restrictions on the use of land, which include mortgages, easements, and restrictive covenants. Now, restrictive covenants, didn't really mention that, but since it's come up in the summary, I'm going to touch on it real quick. When I was a little kid, we moved in this house. The guy was obviously a racist that built this addition, because in the thing he said, no one can live in this addition who's black. Okay? Well, those are the kind of restrictive covenants that are not enforceable. Those are unenforceable restrictive covenants. You've got to be able to sell. In other words, free association under the First Amendment, you've got to be able to sell, associate, live with, marry, whoever you want in the United States. So those kind of covenants are illegal. You cannot do that, okay? So basically any kind of restrictive covenants, that can be like, you can have a covenant that one guy can buy some land from another guy, but the other guy owns a gas station. So his basic restrictive covenant is you can put any kind of store in there, but not a gas station. Okay, and that restrictive covenant thing, you go into a lot more things, okay? Like you cannot park your car on the street. You have to park your car in the driveway or in the garage. Crazy stuff, They've had restrictive covenants that say no vinyl siding in this neighborhood. It has to be brick or natural, some kind of natural product. Wood, something like that. Not vinyl, not aluminum. Okay, so basically, those are some kinds of examples of restrictive covenants. Well, hey, I got to move on. I got to go teach a class here in just a few minutes. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got something of it. Share your thoughts and ideas on there, especially when I've asked you a specific question. I'm doing this on purpose because I'm trying to get people to not only watch these, but respond to them. Because I'm not even real sure how many of you are watching them. So let me know if you're really serious. I want to know if I'm even wasting my time or spinning my wheels or just what I'm doing. So thanks for watching. We'll be back soon with something else.